being this increasingly gambling and casino culture we find ourselves in. We talked about that in detail in this episode here. And it's not that people suddenly became worse, it's that the incentives quietly change underneath them. And money sits right at the center of that. When money reliably holds value, it gives people room to think, to plan, to cooperate, to build things that take time. But when money leaks value year after year, it pushes behavior in the opposite direction. Not by force, but by necessity. That's the backdrop for why this conversation matters so much today. Because when people sense something is wrong with this system, they naturally start looking for alternatives. And right now, one of the most common questions I hear, especially with gold making new highs, is a reasonable one. Why not just go back to a gold standard? So before we talk about why Bitcoin is different, it's worth understanding why gold ultimately failed.
But I thought about the next big thing, which is how to make gold more like Bitcoin. And ultimately what it comes down to is the availability of an alternative to the central banking system for clearance. And that's something that Bitcoin has, but gold does not have. Today even, and back then, you can't just trade gold. You can't say, all right, I don't want to use my bank and my central bank. I'm going to set up a gold bank account, and I'm going to trade with my suppliers in China and Brazil with gold. I'm just going to send them ounces of gold, and they're going to send me back goods. That's not going to work. You can't do that. There are no gold banks. You can't get a license for a bank anywhere in the world if you run it on gold. And your central bank, you can't be a member of the IMF if you're on a gold standard. It's one of the conditions of joining the IMF. So if you want to join the modern global monetary system, if you as a country want to trade with the rest of the world, you more or less have to join the fiat dollar system. And there's no alternative to it. And there's no easy way of physically moving gold around. It's very expensive to move around, and it's very expensive to verify it. The only way that you can tell for sure that a gold bar is real is you have to actually melt down the whole thing and recast it, which is pretty expensive. So moving gold from one country to the other on an airplane is expensive, and then melting it and recasting it in order to verify its purity is also very expensive. So that practically means that if your central bank tells you have to deal with this currency and you can't redeem it in gold, you're stuck. You have no alternative.
This is a subtle but important distinction. Gold didn't fail because it was bad money. It failed because it couldn't exist outside of institutions. Once banks, vaults, and clearing systems became choke points, governments didn't need to outlaw gold. They just needed to control the rails around it. Bitcoin changed that dynamic completely. There's no central cleaning house, no licensing authority, no permission required to move value across borders. Settlement doesn't depend on trust in an institution. It depends on rules enforced by the network itself. That's why Saifedean's newest book, The Gold Standard, is such an interesting thought experiment. It imagines a world where gold evolves as far as it possibly can, almost Bitcoin-like. And even then, it still falls short. I've read all of Saifedean's books except this latest one, and each one of them has sharpened how I think about money, incentives, and history. If this episode has been resonating with you so far, I really encourage you to go and read his work, and to watch this full interview on what Bitcoin did. We've got a link in the description. Now, this brings us to one of the most important reframes in the entire